introduce myself.
Yes.
My name is Philippe Longchamp, and I am originally from Quebec in Canada. So French is my first language. Then I learned English in school, like I guess like most of you. And I moved to Sweden about 20 years ago. So I learned the language, and now I feel like Sweden is my new home. Of course, I miss my home country of Canada. And I became a teacher. I've been teaching for more than 20 years now. It's the best job in the world. I love it. I have students same age as you. Most of them are Swedish, but it's a very international school. I do have students in my class from India, for example, Reyanche, and I've been teaching at the same school for a long, long time. It's a school where we mix different languages, and I like Mr. Hari Krishna said now, I was awarded the prize for best teacher in Sweden in 2020, and then I was laureate of the Global Teacher Prize. And last year I was named Sweden's best history teacher. But I teach history, geography, and technology, and I teach them together. And together with my colleagues, we mix all the different subjects. So we try to merge everything together instead of having like a very fragmented schedule. And in Sweden, they have short school days, and we don't give much homeworks compared to other countries. I think that your students would like that. And I
Yes.
would like to engage the students as well, because I think that I even have like a little pop quiz for you about like my time in India and in Andhra Pradesh. Maybe
Yes.
we can engage the students, and you can make a little guess
Yes.
for your questions.
Absolutely. That's going to be a very funny thing for my students as well. Okay.
Good.
And yeah, please.
Hello, sir. This is Z.P.H.S, a 7th grader. Can I ask one question, sir?
Yes.
Could you please share about your achievements as the best teacher award of Sweden?
Hmm. That is a good question. I mean, I personally don't think I do anything special, but my students and their parents, they think that I do things differently. And it gave a lot of attention because I think that receiving a prize like this helps other teachers maybe to find new ways to teach. And I can show you that in Sweden, when you get a reward like this or a prize like this, I even they put me on the cover of magazines, and this is the teacher magazine here. So it's very overwhelming, I must say, because I feel that my students are making success, but I think that the most important thing for me as a teacher is not necessarily the grades. I want all my students to make progress. I try to say that grades are not that important. When you will look for a job in the future, your employer will not ask you for the grades you had in primary school. Everyone start at different levels. Everyone needs to make progress, and I measure the true success and progress. And I think that the parents see this. And when I was nominated, I was the first immigrant to win that prize in Sweden. So it makes me feel very privileged and very humble also, because like I said, I personally don't think I do anything different. It's just that I do what I love, and I love to teach the next generation, because I put a lot of hope in your generation to make this world a better place.
Yeah, Philip, let me admit the fact that the humble teachers, they never admit the fact that they are great. So you are one of the greatest teachers. I know that. So your contribution definitely reached to your students. That's why the government of Sweden recognized your services, and they awarded you. So congratulations on these tremendous achievements. So Sai Surya,
Thank you
over to
very
you.
much.
Educator from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. Glad to meet you. Now I would like to pose your question. Can I?
Yes, of course.
What kind of liberty is given to a teacher in your country to teach innovatively? What kind of rewards are given to teachers who excel in their subjects of concern?
Again, a very good question. We do have a lot of freedom as teachers in Sweden, and we are even encouraged to make a lot of different things, like not only in the classroom, but go out of the classroom, go in nature, change the different ways of teaching. But we have to follow the national curriculum, and the national curriculum has been updated in last year, and we have very clear goals to reach. But goals can be reached in different ways. So teachers have the right to like use their own inspiration, and like you said here also, like there are methodologies in pedagogy that works better with some students. So the teachers are encouraged to find the best way to individualize their teaching to the students' needs. So we do have liberty, but we still have responsibilities to reach every student. If I have one student that is failing, I personally take it personally, because it means that I haven't done a good job of making sure that I don't leave anyone behind. So for me, there is no such thing as learning difficulties. There's only teaching difficulties. Everybody has a potential, but there is different path to reach that person. And we can reach that person within a group, because going to school is also to learn to live in society. It's a place where you socialize, where you learn human interactions. And this is very, very dear for me, because we have to have a good relational pedagogy to know the interest of our students, to be able to adapt to their needs. So this is the kind of liberty I'm talking about here. I hope I answer your question correctly.
Yes, absolutely. I think the way that we adopt ourselves to tailor the needs of the students is definitely the need of the hour. Whether it is a teacher in India or a teacher in Sweden, I think exactly we have to read their minds and we have to serve them as per their needs. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Subramanian Srinivas, it's your turn.
Hello, sir. This is Subramanya Srinivas. Hello, sir. This is
Hello.
Subramanya Srinivas, a 7th grade student. I would like to ask a question. Can I ask, sir?
Yes, of course, please.
What topics are taught to students as a part of teaching technology?
Yes. When I teach technology, there are different goals to reach. But when I teach it, I like to teach it in some type of evolutionary process. Since I teach it together with history, technology did not just exist like this. It followed an evolution from the time we were cavemen, when we started to carve stones and wooden tools. And then we developed this, we invented the sail, we invented the wheel, we invented so all these things follow an evolutionary process. So when I start with my students in grade 7, I want to start with the basics, and I go in complexity. And when they finish the 3rd year in grade 9 in my cycle, then we talk about the future. We talk about rocket science, we talk about robotics, we do mechatronics. My students build robots. And so, but in order to build this, you need to understand what came before that. So we need to understand how the wheel functioned before you understand how cogwheels function, for example. So in order to learn the mechanics of technology, you need to have good basis. So I like to use the chronological evolutionary approach. And what's included in technology basically is everything from the simplest technological device, even making a stone tool is technology. But then by the end of grade 9, my students need to be able to do programming or coding, if you prefer. They need also to have good basis in information technology. Now that we have AI, artificial intelligence, it is very, very important in the curriculum that we teach our students to think critically. because you know that there is a lot of misinformation online on the internet. And one of the most important thing in the new Swedish curriculum is to teach the students to recognize what is a fact and what is an opinion. Because there's way too many opinions online, and we need to teach the students to trust the scientific method of inquiry in order to understand what is tangible, provable, that we can demonstrate with the empiric method of an analysis. And this way, we are teaching not only technology as like a subject on how to do things, but as a subject on how to really evaluate the quality of the information we get online. But it goes like, it's a huge range of things. And when you teach it together with history in a historical context, it makes more sense, because then you see how it evolves together with the human evolution and the historical evolution. So it is, I find it more exciting personally. But yes, we do a lot of fun stuff, and I will give you examples later.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you. So Philip,
Okay.
I have heard that the merging of the two subjects, that means teaching two subjects together.
Yes.
So do you think that this process is everywhere in Sweden, or in only a certain schools?
It was only in certain schools, but now that they see that the scientific research proved that it works better for long-term knowledge acquisition, now they made it official in the new curriculum, that they encourage all teachers to merge subjects as much as possible, because students make relevant connections between the different things they learn. And that contributes to the know-how, not only the knowledge. It's not only to memorize stuff, but also to learn competence for life.
Yes. So in this regard, a teacher, if for instance, if you take English teacher and he has to know the other subjects as well, so
Yes.
he has to link the other subjects. So
Yes.
how different your syllabus is? Do you have a different syllabus that changes from time to time? And how the teachers are trained from time to time? Because you have just told that, and you are following a scientific method at this
Yes.
moment. So
Yes.
how you are equipped with this? How your teachers are equipped to teach this scientific method of teaching?
Very good question. We have continuous training also. So all teachers are lifelong learners. We need to learn new stuff all the time. And we do like what we call in Sweden, samplanering, which is like co-planning and co-evaluation. So it's a teamwork also to teach. We are not encouraged to be alone. And if we see that our colleague is working with something, then we organize it based on that chronology that I mentioned before, this evolution. And you mentioned now the English teacher, but let's imagine we are in grade 7. The students are about 12 to 13 years old, and we talk about ancient Greece. And sometimes it would be just philosophy and history, things like democracy. But in the Swedish class, which is a mandatory language, the students will learn about literature, and they will learn about the Iliad and the Odyssey, the classics. In English, they will see the same thing, but in English, so then they can do some translation and translanguaging if they want. Then they have courses in civics and religion, so they hear about Greek mythology, they hear about the politics of Greece in another class, and then in history, they talk about Athens and Sparta and Alexander the Great and everything. Then in my class in geography, then we can take about earthquakes, and we can talk about volcanoes because they occurred at that time. So it's not only like military history or kings and queens or philosophers. We mix different things. And one of your students mentioned technology. When we finish that chapter, we also have to see what kind of technological improvement the Greeks have made. So then we look at different inventions, and then I encourage the students at the end of that chapter to take a material from South Korea that is called 4D frame. I give them one kit like this. I give them one little ping pong ball, you know, like table tennis, and one elastic. And then I tell them that I'm going to build a little fortress in the corner of the classroom with paper cups. And then you have 50 minutes to construct an catapult with the elastic and the material I give you. And with the ping pong ball, your teams of two, you have to design from scratch a catapult with this material, and you have to destroy the fortress in the corner. So everyone said, yes, challenge accepted. But then I'll tell them before, wait a minute, I expect you to fail, because there's no better way than to learn from your mistakes. So I expect you to make mistakes. And if it doesn't work, you go back and you try again, and you will experience the same challenges that the Greeks have encountered at the time of Alexander the Great, that they encountered when they invented this machine. And you know, the next year, when we talk about the medieval time, then we look at the evolution of this technology. We see that the catapult has evolved into another device that is called a trebuchet. And now we build a big one, and we go in a park and we feel like water balloons. And then they have to calculate the mathematics of that. And then they throw water balloons very far in the park. And we have a student who managed to throw his water balloon 35 meters last term. And now we keep record of that. And now the students are really excited because they see history as something tangible, that they will do something fun with it also. So they will always remember this, because you learn much better when you experience something, when you do something with your hands, when you do experiential learning, than just reading a text or listening to a lecture, because it makes you feel happy when you have a playful learning experience, and it develops different kinds of competence that are very useful. I mean, we spend so much time reading books and in front of computers that it's good to go outside and to be on the floor and do things with your hands and collaborate also with your classmate, because teamwork is so important.
Yes, absolutely. Radhika, over to you.
Yes.
Radhika, you muted the microphone, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Radhika.
How are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Thank you, sir. I have a question, sir. Can I ask?
Absolutely, I'm listening to you.
Could you please share chapters or lessons of your history book meant for your students?
Yes, you know what? That's a good question, but I don't personally follow a book. I mean, I use sources and books for the students, but I'm not the type of teacher who will follow the book chapter by chapter. I like to go where it's relevant to what I do, because these books are not organized really in most of the people who write the books are not teachers, and they don't really see the needs. And I want to be able to move things around. But most of the books in history, for example, they are spending in Europe, they're spending a lot of time about European history. And it's a lot about kings and queens and wars. But I think it's more important to look at history as a global thing. They also need to know what happened in China and in India and in Africa and in South America, not only about the kings and queens of Sweden, because we live on the same planet. I think history is a global phenomenon. We influence each other. We experience it now with like the pandemic. It was affecting the whole world. So we cannot talk about history in an isolated thing. That's why I don't like the chapters of the book that you mentioned here. To me, they're not so relevant, because I think the best way to learn to think outside the box is to help your students to learn outside the book. Yes. There's other ways to learn. So think outside the box, but learn outside the book.
Yes, absolutely.
I love books, and I write books too. I love that. I don't say reading is important, but these textbooks, they're not meant to be followed dogmatically. They are there to support. The real learning happens here and here.
Yes, I do agree with you, Philip. I personally also don't recommend my students to follow the textbook as a Bible, Quran, and Bhagavad Gita. And I also suggest my students to go beyond the textbook and think out of the box. That's where your creativity comes out. So
exactly.
Yes.
And that's what we need, creativity. I love that. That's true. Listen to your teacher. He's a wise man.
Thank you. Lohita, over to you.
Hello, sir. This is Lohita Girija. I am a ninth grader. Can I ask
Hello.
one question, sir?
Absolutely, Lohita.
It is always a tough job to teach a history subject in a traditional way as it doesn't create any interest among students. How differently do you teach history using current technology?
I think like the example I gave before, like with the catapults and the fun playing is one of the examples here. But as the students are getting a bit older, maybe it's not as much fun to do like these, play with these toys. So I continue in the same spirit, but let's say like when they're older, when they get like 16, then I encourage them to do more programming because they're more advanced and they have to build their own website, their own blog about a subject, and I give them a lot of freedom. And then they can explore and they can do research, and they're encouraged to bring in other topics from other subjects in their research. So like your teacher just said, creativity is important. So I tell my students that what I want is for them to explore things, evaluate the quality of their sources, think critically, and teach me something new. Now I say it's a flipped classroom. Now you have the chance to discover things. And if you manage to teach me something that I don't know, then I will be interested, I will be captivated, and you will get a good grade, not based on the final product of your blog, but I will observe the process, how you work in class, how the kind of questions you're going to ask yourself and you're going to ask me as you work. And even if you are not done with your blog, I mean, you could always continue to develop it. I don't care about the final product. I will evaluate the process and I will measure your success in progress. So the students are encouraged to work, and this is a way to motivate them without creating fear. Because when you create fear of, oh, I'm going to fail this task or I'm going to fail this exam, then the students cannot be creative. You need to free their mind to say, like I said, I expect you to make mistakes. I expect you to fail, because then you open the door to creativity, because, oh, no, it's not going to work. But then suddenly, wow, it works. Then it has a positive impact, because you learn that the best way to learn is from your mistakes. So the fear of making mistakes is a big issue with people your age. Sometimes you should not fear of making mistakes as long as you learn from them.
Yes, absolutely. Nandini, over to you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. This is Nandini, an 8th grader from Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. Here, my question is: do you integrate history and geography while teaching to your students?
All the time, because these two subjects, they are very, very important. Regardless if it's physical geography, if it's human geography, economic geography, or even geopolitics, it is the core of all history. Because without understanding where things are, why these places are like this, the resources, the environment, you cannot really understand history in its entirety. We really need to be able to learn the basics, even in geology and oceanography. Geography is much more than just maps. Geography is to understand how the world and the planet is transformed. And I think that they go very well together.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Mamata, over to you.
Yes, sir. I'm a sixth grader. Can I ask one question, sir?
Absolutely, yes.
What qualities should a 21st century teacher possess, sir?
The best quality is open-mindedness, and I think your teacher used the right word here when he said creativity. So to develop creativity, to give to think like outside the box, to be able to teach this is the greatest quality. Like the thing that we should possess first is good social competence. We should care about our students, and then nurture creativity. I think it is possible. Maybe some people say we can't teach creativity, but if you create the right conditions to let the spirit of the young people flourish, then it's great, because the people your age, you can learn much faster, and you have less, let's say, you're much more open-minded than we are sometimes when we are my age, with the white beard like this. It's better to do it when you're young. So I think the greatest quality is to give room to creativity, be open-minded, but don't be too gullible, because to be a good critical thinker is important, but not too much, because then you don't want to become cynical and reject everything, thinking that everything is wrong and everything is untrustworthy. There is a good balance to have between a healthy dose of skepticism and cynicism. And we cannot reject everything, learning to say that everything is false, everything is fake news on the media, whatever. We need to be able to see what is a fact and what is an opinion, based on the real good scientific method of inquiry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Rigveda
you.
Vardhani.
Sir. Hello,
Hello.
sir.
Hi.
This is Rigveda Vardhini, an 8th grader in Z.P.H.S Ilavaram. I would like to interact with you. Here my question is, what is the retirement age in Sweden? What kind of benefits can a retired teacher have?
The age of retirement in Sweden is about 67 years old, but some people can finish at the age of 65. And if, for example, the average age of the Swedish people, I mean, we have a life expectancy of about 80 years here in Sweden. So some people retire a bit earlier, but some people are allowed to stay and work until they're 80 sometimes. So the retiring age is okay, and the benefits, it depends on what type of job you've had. But in Sweden we pay a lot of taxes, but we see a lot coming back to us. Like, that education is completely free in Sweden. Healthcare is free. We have good infrastructures, but for this, we pay a really, really high level of taxes, tax on consumption as well. But I think people are satisfied with this because they really see this coming back to them as services and goods. So it's a small society. We're only 10 million people with the same language. And historically, they've been doing this for a long time. So when you retire in Sweden, you have a good living standard usually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Jagadish,
sir.
it's over to you, Jagadish.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. My name is Jagdish. I am studying 8th grade at Z.P.H.S School, Ilavaram. Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes, Jagadish, I'm listening to you.
What is your approach in teaching geography?
I like to teach geography in a lot of ways, but again, I like to do it in an evolutionary way. So usually when I start with my students in grade 7, I start with the basic geophysics. I go from I zoom out. I start with the universe and the Big Bang, and then I zoom in to go to the core of the Earth. So now we talk a lot about geophysics, the composition of the planets and the composition of stars. And then I go into the geology of the Earth and the movement of the continental plate. And then we talk about volcanoes and earthquakes, and then the environment, the atmosphere. Once we know the planet as an entity, then we can start to talk about what the impact of humans on it. And later on, we talk about economic geography, human geography, and we finish in grade 9 with geopolitics, because then when we talk about the history, the modern history, for example, the Cold War, and the world wars and everything, then there's a lot of geopolitics involved. So then we can learn more about the modern maps and everything, but we need to learn about the planet itself before we look at how it's all divided into smaller countries. And I'd like to do a bit of everything, a lot of demography. I think about poverty. I think about environment, the global goals, the United Nations global goals. And I like also to let my students participate in contests so they can use what they learn in class to apply them and also to develop their creativity. Yeah, and geography is one of my favorite things to teach. I think it's very exciting because I love to travel. I want to see the world.
Okay, thank you. Students, do you have questions still? I think we have a few more questions left.
Sir, can I?
So,
Hello?
yes, Jaishnavi.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
This is Jaishna Likita, a sixth grader. I would like to ask one question, sir.
Yes?
In Sweden, society plays a key role in providing necessary help to a fellow citizen. Could you please tell us something?
Yes, I think I mentioned before that in Sweden we pay lots of taxes. And this is a way to take care of your fellow citizens. So in Sweden, we have almost no poor people, but we have very few rich people. So it means that we are like the rich people pay more taxes than the poor people, and then they kind of equalize the society. So this is the way we take care of people. We try to spread a bit more the wealth without doing it in a like in the it's not like communism, but it's a social democratic system where people willingly participate in this social contract where the rich are taxed more than the poor. So it's a way that they help their fellow citizens by redistributing part of their wealth. There's still people who get really rich, but like the inventor of IKEA, for example, or the owner of Volvo, or so there's a lot of big companies in Sweden, but we rarely see people left out because there is a social net where poverty is, I mean, there's still poverty, but it is not, you will not let anyone die on the street left alone. There is a social net to protect everyone, especially the elderly and the kids.